Breast cancer screening supported by artificial intelligence is leading to a higher rate of early detection. A study of 100,000 women found the AI screenings reduce the rate of later diagnosis by 12%. The AI system works by analyzing mammograms and highlighting suspicious findings. Crews in the south are still working to restore power and clear snow and ice from the weekend winter storm. Dangerous sub-zero temperatures have not let up, and another storm is in the forecast for the south and eastern seaboard this weekend. Tens of thousands of customers remain without power in Tennessee and Mississippi. 21-year-old Ethan Green says he's been working 16-hour days with the Yazoo Valley Electric Power Association in Mississippi to help get customers back up and running.
It's a pressure, and all I can say is we're working on it, but we can only go so quick. In order to do it safely, we have to take our time.
Fans and colleagues are mourning the loss of legendary actor and comedian Catherine O'Hara. Her agency says she died at her home in Los Angeles after a brief illness. The cause of death remains unknown. O'Hara, a Canada native, had a long career as a sketch writer and comedian as part of the cast of SCTV alongside Eugene Levy, and gained fame in movies like Beetlejuice and the role of Kevin's mom in Home Alone. She most recently starred in the series The Last of Us. O'Hara was 71. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Quiet down. Here she comes. Shh. Surprise! Your accountant just emailed to say your quarterly taxes are way higher than you were expecting.
At Progressive, we know small business owners don't usually like surprises because they cost you money. But a good surprise that could save you money? Getting discounts with a commercial auto quote from Progressive.
Also, your favorite employee is leaving. They're going to pursue their dream of being a veterinarian.
Surprise yourself. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or cities.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
It's now 4:05 at News Talk KVNU, and I'm Will Feelright as we begin KVNU's For the People show with a check of our top local stories. Well, 2 people were hospitalized yesterday afternoon after escaping a house fire in Kearns that investigators believe was caused by a space heater. Now, the fire was reported around 3 o'clock. According to Unified Fire Authority, 5 people resided in the home. One of the residents, Terry Stewart, said she had left for about 20 minutes, but then returned home to find black billowing smoke coming from the residence. Now, Stewart's husband and daughter were inside when the fire started. Her husband reportedly kicked down a back gate to escape the flames. Both were transported to a hospital. Now, Unified Fire Authority spokesman Kelly Bird stated that the fire likely originated from a space heater that was inside a bedroom. Now, the blaze caused heavy damage to the bedroom, kitchen, and living room, but the home was not a total loss. Meanwhile, a new report out shows that workers in the Mountain West are among the most vulnerable when it comes to job displacement caused by artificial intelligence. Now, that new report was conducted by the Brookings Institution. The study analyzed adaptive capacity. That's the ability of workers to find new employment after losing a job to automation. Now, researchers found that while AI affects industries nationwide, workers in the Mountain West and Midwest face higher risks because their local economies often have fewer reemployment options. Now, the report also identified administrative and clerical workers as having the highest vulnerability. Now, conversely, though, healthcare providers and first responders were ranked as the least likely to be negatively impacted by AI adoption. And a reported attempted carjacking in Weber County earlier this week at a parking lot turned out to just be a case of mistaken identity involving a towing company, according to the police department. Now, the Harrisville Police Department investigated the incident on Wednesday. Now, what they found was that investigators determined that employees of a towing company were attempting to repossess a vehicle but lost sight of it when it went into a parking lot. Now, the workers approached a different vehicle that matched the description, but then quickly realized their error after making contact with the driver. Now, the department stated that within moments of recognizing the mistake, the individuals located the correct vehicle elsewhere in the parking lot and completed the repossession as intended. Now, police noted the employees expressed regret for the confusion. Officials confirmed, though, that no crime ever occurred. Well, clouds expected to continue through the rest of the afternoon and overnight tonight as temperatures been in the high 30s today. Tonight, we're going to drop into the mid to low 20s. Then we'll see 40s coming for tomorrow, high 40s, low 50s for Sunday. a few clouds through the weekend and some fog, again, that we're going to be dealing with each morning. But it looks like by the first of next week, we'll see temperatures staying in the high 40s. And right now, it doesn't look like we'll see another chance of any possible snowfall. And weather here at the top of the hour brought to you by Mountain Valley Heating. Did you know indoor air in our area can oftentimes be 5 times dirtier than outdoor air, especially during these dry winter months? That's why you want to call Mountain Valley Heating for a free in-home air quality assessment. Give them a call today at 435-753-5170. And I'm Will Feelright. I'll have another check of local news coming up at the bottom of the hour as KVNU News Time. It's now 4:08.
We start each new year filled with hope and prosperity for things to come. At Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology, it's no different. Dr. Daines is so grateful to get to call Cache Valley home and continue to offer his services to the wonderful people that live in our beautiful valley. He wants to help you start your new year off right by improving your hearing, which over the course of time will help improve your quality of life. Give them a call at 435-753-4327 or 753-HERE to schedule an appointment, or you can visit them online at cachevalleyhearing.com.
This is Riley from the Bear River Health Department, and as we step into January, let's talk about a great goal to set for 2026, connecting with our kids. January is Parents Empowered Month, a powerful reminder that you play the most important role in keeping your kids alcohol-free. The research is clear. When parents set rules, stay connected, and spend meaningful time with their kids, it dramatically reduces the likelihood of underage drinking. This month, take a moment to slow down and strengthen those everyday connections. Eat dinner together, check in after school, or plan a simple activity you can enjoy as a family. These small moments build trust, and trust builds protection. Parents Empowered offers free tools, tips, and family-friendly ideas to help you start conversations about alcohol and guide your kids through challenging situations. Visit brhdut.gov to learn more. Let's make January a month of prevention, connection, and stronger families. Parents Empowered, together we can keep Utah's kids alcohol-free.
The annual Greater Cache Valley Economic Summit, brought to you by Cache Valley Chamber of Commerce and Bank of Utah, is Tuesday, February 10th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. This year features a panel from USU, and keynote speaker is Tim Mahidi, founder and chief economist at Access Macro, a consulting company that makes smart banks smarter. Come enjoy a great day of learning, networking, and lunch catered by Elements Restaurant. It's the annual Greater Cache Valley Economic Summit, Tuesday, February 10th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Register online now at cashchamber.com. That's cashchamber.com.
You've got your whole life ahead of you, so choose a Medicare plan you can count on. And if you have both Medicare and Medicaid, you may be eligible for a United Healthcare Dual Complete plan if your Medicaid status has changed. A Dual Complete plan may help you get more benefits than original Medicare alone. Visit uhcdualplans.com to learn more. That's uhcdualplans.com. United Healthcare Medicare plans. It's Medicare coverage you can count on.
Is your health and wellness journey just beginning? The Sports Academy is more than just a gym. It's a community that offers something for all ages and fitness levels. Are you ready to feel empowered, energized, and unstoppable? See for yourself why the Sports Academy is more than a gym. Check out our community today with the largest weight rooms, certified coaches, trainers, and instructors that will keep you motivated. Welcome to the Sports Academy community. Your club, your results, your life.
Aggie basketball is heard here.
You know, there's a pride in this.
KVNU is your station for the best game day coverage, with pregame beginning 1 hour before tip-off, play-by-play and postgame interviews, and Aggie call afterwards. It's Aggie basketball on News Talk KVNU 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at kvnutalk.com, and the KVNU mobile app, the heritage home for the Aggies. KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU 610 AM, 102.1 FM, online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile
legislative session getting to a much more aggressive start than
I would have predicted. As far as, the big broad stuff, I'm sure, there's still plenty of time for controversial stuff to make itself known. But actually, in the doing some serious work in the first couple of weeks of the year. Now, of course, no bills can pass until officially in session, and once in session, the bills must pass by 11:59 p.m. The first Friday in March. And so the 45-day session, they try to get as much as they can done, for better or worse. And what that means is oftentimes big, broad attempts to address overall quality of life in Utah become interim task force studies and things like that, and take years to do. And that can be a good thing. But one thing that has been an interim task force and long-term study, going way back to when they first launched the intergenerational poverty study, which I think that was like 2012, so a while ago. The legislature has continued to kind of work on this, and some of that work has evolved as the problems have, and where it's currently at is trying to. So over the last 10 years, Utah fell from the number one state in the nation for birth rate consistently, year after year after year, and we dropped down to 10th place. It was a slow slide, more than a drop, but it happened, over a 10-year period. But in 2025, we were officially 10th in the nation for our ranking in the national birth rate. Now, that's not bad, but lawmakers are saying, okay, what is behind this? Well, actually, researchers are saying what's behind this, and the lawmakers are taking the results of that research and saying, okay, what can we do about this, if anything? So Utah is not at risk of losing, any kind of family-friendly state status or anything like that. But this is, relatively a pretty rapid decline, the Speaker of the House said. And of course, the reasons could be multitude, but exploring them is probably important. So just to be clear on what the data actually says, before we get into what lawmakers are considering doing about it, or doing to try and turn it around, I guess. Utah went from having the most births per woman in the state to the fastest falling fertility rate in the country. Again, we're still, we're only number 10. We're still, way up there in the ranking, state by state. But we had the fastest falling fertility rate over the last 10 years of any state. And at the same time, over the same 10 years, we had the fastest rise in housing prices. We currently sit here in 2026 at the 9th priciest state for buying a home or renting a home or renting anything. And also when it comes to raising families in general, we've talked about this on the show many times, but Utah is known as a child care desert. Well, Utah has large areas that are known as child care deserts, meaning that when you look at the population, the number of children, and then contrast that with the number of child care options, it's obvious that there is not enough, meaning that keeps people out of the labor market, meaning that families are running on less fuel, less money each month because only one person can work. And so that can hold them back from purchasing a home, especially in the early years of raising a family. And so there are a lot of, obvious things that come from that. And so Utah House Republican Speaker Mike Schultz said his caucus, he's not the one pushing this, but he, speaking, as part of a legislative session kickoff press conference, he said, that his caucus has decided that this year that's going to be a top priority to see what they can do to remove some of these barriers to starting a family. They believe, again, that housing prices, to some extent, tax burden, Utah has a pretty light tax burden. Overall, we're 14th highest tax burden in the nation. So, it's hard to argue that is the biggest reason that people might be holding off on starting a family or deciding not to in general. Or this was pointed out as well, this might be not even people holding off on starting a family, but maybe people having one kid instead of two or two kids instead of four. So, a lot of different variables here. But either way, over a 10-year period, we dropped very quickly in fertility rate here in Utah. And so these are what they've landed on. Housing prices, lack of child care options. Democrats in the House and the Senate, House and State Senate have said that they should also be looking at, parental leave, maternity and paternity leave. Is it long enough in Utah? Should it be longer? Because that can be a huge issue too. If you don't get enough leave to actually do a good job of, that first few weeks or months of having a newborn. A lot of times, especially if someone is invested through college education and student loans and all of that in their career, that could be a deciding factor for them as well. So that's going to be a big part of the discussion. One lawmaker said the cost of living in Utah, she felt, was the biggest threat in general to Utah's Utahness, she called it. That was Majority Whip Candace Pierucci, Republican from Harriman. And the chamber, the overall chamber, Democrats and Republicans alike, are getting all on board with this. They're pretty limited, to be honest, on what they can do policy-wise. Tax burden they can do, but if that's not a huge contributor to why people are deciding not to have families, at least more often here in Utah, or having smaller families, I don't know that the tax burden going from 14th highest in the nation, which is already pretty low, to 10th. I don't know if that's going to make a big difference. If you jump to to where you're getting to where you have the lowest tax burden, you're in the under 10 for lowest tax burden. That would be great. But it's childcare. I can definitely see that. If you think about what parents are facing these days, childcare options be a huge factor. I think it's home prices. Again, not an expert. I haven't looked at all the data. My gut tells me that the fact that people can't afford as easily to get into a home or even to rent a home or rent a 2-bedroom apartment, that's obviously going to stop. It's going to stop people from getting married in the first place. If they do get married, it's going to stop them from having a child, at least until they have better space to do so or can afford to do so. But that's going to be tough as well. What can the state really do to quickly drive down housing prices? We're building a lot, and the state can grease those wheels, but even that is a 5 to 10 year plan. There's no real urgency to this. Again, it was a rapid decline in birth rate, but it doesn't mean Utah is going to be a ghost town 10 years from now. Nothing like that. But obviously, something is causing it. So now, a really quick note, if they do decide to dig into changes to tax policy, some of the trial ballooned ideas that have been thrown out there, increases or expansion to the state's primary residential exemption. I don't currently know where that is. I believe that it's currently 45%. I could be wrong about that. Should have looked it up before we started talking here. But I believe county assessors exempt up to 45% of what they call fair market value of a home from taxation. So lawmakers could bump that up to 55% and keep taxation down on the home at least. Again, that's not been determined. No exact numbers have been thrown out. Speaker Schultz did say that he believes there's enough support for all of this to flip the property tax burden from 55% falling on residentials and 45% on commercial. That's right. It's 45 on commercial. Flip that so that 55% falls on commercial owners and only 45% falls on residential. So right now, commercial owners are getting a bigger tax break on property than residential, and he believes there's support in the House this session to flip that. So commercial properties would see hypothetical here. I don't know what the exact numbers will end up being, but commercial properties could hypothetically see a 10% increase in their property tax burden, and residential owners would see a 10% decrease from the state, at least, on property tax burden. So that's one option they can do. Again, I don't know if that's enough. Maybe. I mean, that is a significant amount of money for a lot of families. But I don't know if that's enough. I think they're going to have to go broader than this. I think they're going to have to – I think the state's going to have to pour a lot of money into child care. I think that that the state – and the trouble is there's, from what we hear so far at least, just working with revenue projections, that they're working with a pretty tight budget this year. Interestingly enough, thrown out in this by one lawmaker – kind of a from left field, but it could be applicable. But one lawmaker said we need to look at lowering everything we can, including the gas tax rate. He said that's one that hits every family, but it's also, the way they're paying for roads. So you create, kind of a problem, a catch-22 problem for yourself there, but. One lawmaker said that's something that they should look at in how the state responds to all of this. So, again, an interesting discussion. No idea what exactly is going to come out of this, and it's early. They have until the first week of March before any specific bills would actually have to pass anything to make this happen. But that's something that's being talked about. And as far as the income tax. The speaker said, he said this years ago when he first stepped in as House Speaker. He said he had a goal of getting the income tax rate down below a 4% flat rate. But there is some pushback on that from Republicans in the Senate saying they believe for the time being that it wouldn't be prudent to make changes to the income tax until they kind of see a little more settling in the economy. So we'll see. Tax credits, that's also in the mix as far as the discussion goes, at least. Talking about this is creative, giving businesses a 20% tax credit to create on-site child care options for their employees, and expanding the child tax credit to include children who are 5 years old and under the age of 1. That's something they dabbled with in 2025, a year ago. But they're talking about expanding that out and making it permanent. So we'll see. Again, this is all just talk at this point, and way early, but a little hint of what one of the big, broad issues of this specific session might be. And speaking of property taxes, that was also a big part of the discussion, both heading into the legislative session, but also, long before that. This is a general question of why property taxes have been on the rise in Utah. Home prices and a tax rate freeze are the short answer. The two combined together created what state auditors called a, quote, perfect storm that led to an increase in property taxes for homeowners. And Utah continues to have a higher overall property tax rate than most other Republican-led states, as I mentioned. And then you throw, into the mix these inflated home prices. So that really started before the pandemic, but it hit its stride in the pandemic and then just never stopped. So those were identified by the state's Revenue and Taxation Committee, informing the legislature for discussion around some of these issues and some potential solutions to Utah's falling birth rate or fertility rate, they say. That was a big contributor. Seems unrelated, right? But no, they think it might be related. Again, over the past decade, now get this, same period of time in which Utah saw the most rapidly declining fertility rate in the nation, over that exact same decade, the taxable value of Utah homes tripled from roughly tax value total, no homeowners paying this, but $126 billion the state collected 10 years ago from 2025 to, as of October of 2025, last year, $375 billion, nearly triple. while the number of new residential properties only increased 20%. So, I mean, that's not a good combination. So the jump in home prices didn't apply to commercial property values, and so the burden of property taxes collected by the state had shifted more toward, because of how that's calculated, towards residential properties. So that's one of the reasons that lawmakers are thinking about making some changes to that this year, how that all works. And so the legislature, what can the legislature do to change this? It basically comes down to the basic levy. In 21 and 2023, they made a decision that, in hindsight, they're admitting was unfortunately timed, maybe not well thought out. They put a 5-year pause on any adjustment to the state's basic levy for property tax. And so for 5 years, they locked themselves into not being able to make any changes to property tax, including lowering them, creating a fixed rate for 5 years. And they said, in hindsight, that was probably the worst possible time that we could have actually done that. That was a statement from Senator Dan McKay, Republican from Riverton. And so the legislature itself has been an issue. The Wasatch County Council member Luke Searle told the Deseret News, and I've linked to their coverage of this on our Facebook page, but he said the legislature has actually been the biggest problem with that 5-year automatic tax increase for people starting in 2018, followed by a levy adjustment freeze in 2021. It was a double whammy. And then home prices soared through the roofs, and here we are. So that gives you a general scope of what the legislature can do and what they're planning to do. But again, this is all intended at not just making home prices lower, but trying to understand or even turn around a little bit Utah's rapidly declining fertility rate, fastest declining rate in the nation over the last 10 years. So interesting stuff, to say the least. Check it out. I've linked to the Deseret News coverage of this discussion on our Facebook page, and we'll be back with more of KVNU's For the People after the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Logan is back in the national spotlight. The Milken Institute has ranked Logan 8th among the nation's best-performing small cities in its 2026 Economic Index, marking a 40-spot jump from last year. Now, the report highlights Logan's strength in quality of life measures, including top national rankings in community resilience, broadband access, and also income equality. Now, researchers say that Utah State University continues to play a central role, serving as the area's largest employer and fueling job growth across Cache Valley and southeastern Idaho. Now, the study did flag, though, housing affordability as an ongoing concern in this area, with nearly 3 in 10 households spending more than a third of their income on housing. Now, Logan joined several high-ranking Utah and Idaho cities on the list. St. George, meanwhile, took the top spot nationwide, while Idaho Falls ranked second, and Pocatello and Coeur d'Alene also placed in the top 10. Now, the Milken Institute says the results show that northern Utah and eastern Idaho remain among the most resilient and competitive small city economies in the country. In other news, a 55-year-old man arrested earlier this week after police allegedly found a woman covered in blood screaming for help inside his Salt Lake City apartment. Damian Edgar Austin Robbins faces charges of aggravated assault and kidnapping. Police responded after a witness had reported hearing a woman screaming. Now, when officers knocked, Robbins allegedly claimed that no one was inside, but police heard yelling. When the door opened, the victim ran out with visible facial injuries. Now, the woman told investigators that Robbins had barricaded the door with a trash can and a bicycle, then slammed her head into the ground multiple times when she attempted to leave. Now, she suffered a possible broken nose and damaged cheekbone. According to court documents, Robbins admitted to police that he had blocked the door and elbowed the victim, trying to keep her from leaving. And a legislative proposal to phase out property tax credits for low-income seniors has drawn some sharp criticism from housing advocates who fear it could displace vulnerable residents. Now, Senate Bill 78, which is sponsored by Senator Dan McKay of Riverton, would replace the circuit breaker tax credit program with a tax deferral option. Now, McKay argued in committee hearings this week that the current system unfairly subsidizes seniors who who are house rich but cash poor at the expense of other taxpayers. Now, Zoe Newman of the Utah Housing Coalition said the last thing we need to be doing right now is cutting programs that would help seniors stay in their housing. Now, she noted a 42% increase in senior homelessness last year. Now, Governor Spencer Cox vetoed a similar measure last year, warning that it would cut off a critical lifeline. Despite opposition from county treasurers and advocates, the bill did advance out of the committee to the full Senate. Well, we're going to continue to see a mix of clouds and some sunshine as we head into the weekend. As temperatures have been in the high 30s today, tonight we'll drop into the low 20s. We'll see some morning fog again tomorrow morning. Temperatures through the weekend, though, expected to be in the low 40s. Even could see temperatures in the low 50s by Sunday before we'll settle back into the high 40s for the first of next week. It looks like right now, still going to see mostly clear skies with no chance of any snow through the next 7 days. And weather brought to you by Napa Auto Parts. They have air fresheners, snow scrapers, shop towels, seafoam, and more. Everything you need to keep your car ready for these cold winter days. It's at Napa Auto Parts. They have 5 locations from Preston to Providence to take care of you and your car. It's Napa Auto Parts. And I'm Will Theorite for KVNU News.
Updates every 30 minutes and breaking news as it happens. News Talk KVNU, your #1 radio station for news and talk.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franz. A nationwide protest taking place coast to coast against federal immigration operations and recent deaths in Minneapolis. In Georgia, students outside Atlanta staging a walkout. Demonstrations also taking place in New York City and Los Angeles, where journalist Don Lemon was arrested earlier today, charged in connection with the protest inside a Minnesota church. After a court hearing and being indicted, a judge ordered Lemon be released on his own recognizance, and he spoke moments ago.
There is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable. Again, I will not stop now. I will not stop ever.
Lemon says he looks forward to his day in court. A federal judge in New York City dismissing the death-eligible counts from Luigi Mangioni's indictment charged in the murder of United Healthcare CEO. The judge also denied to suppress evidence seized from Mangioni's backpack. This is ABC News.
Bringing Wall Street to Main Street. From your local experts in downtown Logan, this is the Adams Wealth Advisors Market Report.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. Stocks slid on Friday after President Trump named former Federal Reserve Governor Kevin Warsh as his new nominee to lead the Federal Reserve. The Dow lost 179 points. The S&P slid 30. The Nasdaq dropped 223 points. Investors are worried that the Fed will lose some of its independence in the Trump administration, but the dollar did rise on Warsh's nomination. Some of the wildest action was again in the precious metals markets, where gold prices dropped. Stocks of metals miners tumbled. Apple shares fell even though its quarterly profit topped estimates thanks to record iPhone sales. But CEO Tim Cook warned that the global memory shortage will hit future margins. Helping to limit the market's losses was Tesla, which rose 4%. Drug maker Eli Lilly and Company said Friday it will build a $3.5 billion manufacturing facility in Pennsylvania. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
That's your update from Adams Wealth Advisors, guiding your financial future one day at a time. For personalized help planning yours, reach out to us at 435-752-1702. See you soon, Cache Valley. Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
Monday edition Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. We'll track down all of the big news happening over the course of the weekend, and we will get you ready for what should be another wild and woolly week as we enter the month of February. All that and more. Plus, Senator Eric Schmidt will join us. You won't want to miss it. Monday edition, Clay and Buck.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
It's a beautiful day in Cache Valley. Okay, it's a little chilly, honestly. Quite chilly, but there is so much going on. For the People movie show coming up later on and we've got a lot to talk about there as well. Oscars buzz, and the streaming services are just really giving the traditional theater and movie distribution world a run for its money. We'll talk about that, what the ramifications of that are, and whether that is sustainable as well. The theaters are not dying. That's something everyone likes to say, I know, but it's just not the case. But they are under some pressure to step things up a little bit, make the theater-going experience a little more fun for those involved, especially considering the cost. A family of four is going to spend upwards of $60, $70, and that's if you buy the cheap concessions or none. You can keep it down to as low as $50 for a family of four, but that's $60, but that's still I remember, for my family's budget when I was a young kid, that would be kind of a once a month kind of thing, and obviously theaters want to get people in more often than that. So what are they doing to try and make that happen? Well, we'll talk about it. Also recap some of the legislation Cache Valley lawmakers are working on for the legislative session here in the first hour of the show. But I wanted to also talk about this. I don't claim to be an expert on this, neither does the governor, but it is something that a lot of people are talking about in various different ways. And I guess generally you could say this is a conversation about the state of the world for men, for especially young men or boys, even if you want to go into the younger years, and some of the challenges for men and boys in our society right now are not unique to men and boys. Social media, the always connected news cycle, young children having access to stories from around the globe, and how that influences not just their, as they age into adulthood, their politics, but also before, when they're the age they don't care about politics yet, how that might influence their sleep and their anxiety. And it's that, of course, isn't unique to adult men or young men, but it is a part of the whole picture, just like it is for young women and adult women. So there, some of the things that are discussed in a lot of these studies and published research sets that are getting the governor of Utah's attention are not unique to men, but there are some things. And so Governor Cox was recently part of a conversation on health, vocation, and very vague, but purpose for men in America. And this was something, it was called the Men and Boys Wellbeing Symposium. It was hosted by the Sutherland Institute, good friends of the show and weekly contributors, with their Tuesday sneak preview of their Defending Ideas episode each week for our listeners. And they brought a bunch of folks together that have kind of worked in this world for a long time. And there are critics. We'll get to that. There are people who say that this is kind of making much ado out of nothing. But here are some of the things that they discussed. A lot of surveying shows that a significant share of American men, adult men, not young boys, not teenagers, we're talking, I believe they said they broke the survey results down to age 20 and older. And then they also, break it down by 35 to 45, 45 to 55, et cetera. And we'll talk more about the differences there. But overall, what they found is a significant share of American men feel disconnected from societal roles. And that like every group of people, positive role models are important, but also is something that might be unique to today. Positive role models for men are hard to find. Cited in some of the presentation by the Sutherland Institute is, you might not be familiar with this name, but I'll just be blunt. He's an atrocious individual, but he's a social media star. His name's Andrew Tate. He first came to fame in the fighting world, the ultimate fighting world, but then he had to run to another country after he was charged with, I believe, multiple times over, accused of rape. And then eventually he was actually charged with human trafficking. I mean, this is, and if you've seen any of his social media, I don't encourage you to go look for it, but if you run across it, he's quite a character, to say the least. And he was brought up as an example of someone who is very popular with, teen and young adult boys right now, but is a horrible role model. No parent would want their young boy to aspire to be someone like this, was said at the conference. So that's one example, but there were many others given. Certain celebrities were talked about as, that have shown to be very popular with young men that aren't necessarily, someone you'd want, not as bad as Andrew Tate, but still someone you necessarily would want them aspiring to be. And a significant part of this conversation focused around, what happens in the home. And a bit of a lecture for fathers, to be honest with you. One of the experts during this symposium said, we need to talk about the fact that young boys are finding role models on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok so frequently, and what that might say about, are they not finding role models at home? It wasn't an accusation against, all American fathers. It was saying that this might be part of the problem. Our fathers stepping up the way they should. And in some of the survey results discussed, around a third of American men, adult men, feel unmoored from anchoring community institutions. And now that's kind of a vague concept, right? What does that even mean? That was from a Sutherland Institute survey, one they conducted on their own, working in partnership with the Utah Office of Families, which runs out of the governor's office. And they expanded on that. They explained that, anchoring community institutions, obviously here in Utah, one of the primary anchoring community institutions is going to be the LDS Church. And survey results showed that a lot of men in Utah feel disconnected from that a little bit. The reasons are not, obvious, and that was a big part of the discussion. But the survey results were pretty clear. 3 in 10 men surveyed by the Sutherland Institute here in Utah said they did not feel confident about having a positive place in society, and do not have anyone with whom they discuss openly their mental health or this feeling of disconnection. Sutherland published this, by the way, as Missing Anchors, How Some Men Drift from Health, Vocation, and Purpose. And this was actually a focus of a recent sneak preview we played on the show from Sutherland Institute, and you can hear that still via the podcast. Again, they supply that every Tuesday here on the show, so you can hear what Nick's recap of what the survey said. But you can find it yourself at sutherlandinstitute.org. Click on Reports, and it's right there at the top as the most recent. Missing Anchors, How Some Men Drift from Health, Vocation, and Purpose. So running through all of these discussions, again, it came back again and again to the need for better male role models. And they mentioned over and over actual fathers in the home, but also teachers, men of faith, co-workers, friends, others willing to befriend and bolster the sense of place and importance for young men and boys. And during the discussion, Richard Reeves, he was president of the American Institute for Boys and Men and author of a book of Boys and Men that discusses this in greater detail, a few years old but still relevant. And he said during the discussion at this symposium that, quote, the path pointing young men towards meaning and prosperity is slipping away as the core institutions are starting to erode a little bit. And he listed some, civic engagement, being a part of your community, volunteer work, being a member of a church and church attendance, of course, and then marriage or building a family in general. He said, with it there's a sense, at least, if not an actuality, that those are eroding. And he was clear to couch that a little bit, Reeves. He said that he personally believes it's just a sense that they're eroding. He doesn't believe they're actually eroding. But he said there's a sense of that, and that's leading to, men feeling unmoored, disconnected, unanchored. And he talked a little bit about, the need. So someone in the audience during one of the videos that was sent my way said, is this also an opportunity for a conversation about how men gauge their own self-worth? Might there be a place for a discussion about it being unhealthy for men to gauge their own self-worth based solely on whether they, for example, have a leadership role in their community, or whether they have a lot of people turning them to them for advice? That was one comment made. But Reeves said it's different than that. He said that the research he has seen doesn't suggest that it has anything to do with men feeling as if their place in society has been reduced in importance. They're no longer, top guy on the totem pole. He said that the research he's seen suggests that it has more to do with men feeling that not just maybe the loss of that, but that there hasn't been a replacement for that. They just sometimes don't feel important. There was also discussion a lot of changes in the labor market. Could some of this be related to back in the 1950s, and I guess you could say even up until the 80s, men were traditionally the primary breadwinners, or more often than not, the primary breadwinners in the household. And now that's it's more of a 50-50 split. In fact, there are an increasing number of men who actually make less than their wives, and men who decide to be the one that, if someone has to stay home for the kids, and your wife makes more money than you, well, obviously, why would you not be the one to stay home with the kids? And Reeves said that doesn't seem to be the driving force of this unmooring. So there was a lot of, I put it this way, they discussed the problem in, as much detail as is possible. And then they admitted that there aren't really any clear solutions. And Governor Cox stepped up to fill that role, supplying some of the solutions. And he said he had come to these opinions through looking at some of the data he's seen as governor through, similar research and surveying that the Utah Department of Health has done on mental health, and in an effort to specifically combat suicide in Utah, which is, data suggests that it's an area where the problem is growing the fastest, numbers-wise, is with adult men age 40 and up. And you don't have to be a behavioral scientist to make a pretty educated guess on what might be behind that, the governor said. It's that, men, we haven't been raised to talk. And we know that one of the best things to combat suicide ideation, mental health issues in general, is connecting to someone who you can talk with, your spouse, a friend, a coworker, a mental health professional. There are so many options, but Cox says the data suggests men, maybe this will change as these younger kids age into adult men, because they've grown up in a world where it's more acceptable to talk about these things for men. But he said, men age 35 and up likely grew up in a world where men just, you Gary Coopered up. He didn't say that. I'm stealing that actually from a Sopranos episode, but it's a great way to describe it. Gary Coopered up, and you strengthen your jaw, and you cry later, if at all. And Cox was basically describing that as possibly one of the biggest contributors to this. He said that, so the governor said during his presentation, he said, one of the mistakes we've made over the past couple of years, a couple of decades actually, he said, is blurring a line. He said there's a lot of talk right now about toxic masculinity and the downsides of toxic masculinity, and those are, worthwhile discussions. Because it's not something to be proud of if you're unable to talk with other people and express yourself and share what you're really experiencing and feeling. That's unhealthy. That can become like a pressure cooker inside of you and lead to some really bad behavior and dark thoughts. So he said that's not something to be proud of, and that's an example of toxic masculinity. But he said the problem is we've defined and talked so much about toxic masculinity that it's possibly left men, especially young men, feeling a bit adrift because we're not talking a lot about positive masculinity, or even doing a good job of defining, okay, what is modern masculinity? If it's not the old Gary Cooper, don't say a word, just have some peanut butter and struggle through it. Just get some protein and bury your feelings. If that's not healthy, and experts agree that is not, then and yet that is how masculinity has always been defined. And this is just one example the governor gave. Then that leaves kind of a hole in the understanding, especially for young men. Okay, what is masculinity then? What does it mean to be a man? Other experts on hand said, part of the solution might be. So there was a lot of reference to an old book called Men Are From Mars, or Women Are From Venus, Men Are From Mars. And they talked about that as maybe one of the most harmful socially viral events, the publication of that book, because it reinforces this idea that men and women are so different. And so some of the experts said that's part of maybe the solution, is realizing men and women aren't that different. Maybe we've defined men and women's too differently in our societal constructs. But at the same time, there are some ways in which men and women are very different. And oftentimes, again, we've defined toxic masculinity, the governor said, but we've done not such a great job of defining positive masculinity. The governor said that's why he believes that a lot of young men feel adrift and are asking themselves, is there something wrong with me all the time? He said the keys to supporting young men in his mind are, social institutions, faith groups, scouting groups, local neighborhood groups, and of course he echoed, positive male role models, and those are obvious things. But he and Dr. Reeves also suggested that ensuring that mental health institutions actually train providers to deal specifically with male mental health issues and how to talk about those in a way that older and younger men will be more likely to respond to positively and open up. And even to increase the percentage of K through 12 teachers who would be trained, to be able to talk with a young teen, obviously maybe struggling with some things. He said, Governor Cox said, I'm not saying we've gone too far in the work we've done to be more inclusive of women and the minority groups and things like that. But he said we do also have to understand that young men need positive male role models, and we've spent all of our energy talking about everything else. It's maybe time to talk about this. Dr. Reeves wrapped up by saying, he kept using the word unanchored. He said, I use that word because it's the language of the current report, obviously, but he said also it just fits. In most cases in my work and my research, the doctor said, literally, this can become fatal. Anyone, male or female, young or old, feeling completely unanchored, disconnected, not valuable, not worthy of taking up space, not worthy of using words in their own minds to express themselves or be heard by someone else, can be fatal. We know that. And he said, I think there's space for some civic institutions to take on, what he called a gendered role. But we need to do this without taking away from anyone else. So there was also a lot of discussion of fatherhood. If you want to see this, it's a really interesting discussion. Don't expect to come away from this, the video that Sutherland has put out from the symposium, with any clear answers. If you're a parent out there raising young boys, don't expect to walk away from this thinking, oh, I know what to do now. But I think it's a really important discussion, and it is illuminating in a lot of ways. One example, I'll leave you with this. Ian Rowe, an educator something academies, Vertex Partnership Academies, doesn't matter. He's an educator. He's also a senior fellow on child development at American Enterprise Institute. And he said that one thing they have had success with is promoting tools that help them kind of catch up in this world. And he echoed the same thing as Dr. Reeves, kind of saying, look, we've done a great job of focusing on those traditionally slipping through the cracks, young women, minority groups, people coming out of impoverished families or cycles of intergenerational poverty. And that's important and that's good. But he said we need to do the same for young men because they are slipping through their own cracks. And so he said instead of for young men, he gave one example. He said we overemphasize failure and crisis. Maybe instead we should be talking about, a reverence for certain types of success. We should be talking about that in America today, to be a man, opening up and talking about your feelings with your spouse or a coworker or a friend is a very manly thing to do, not traditionally the way that's been seen. It was a really, really interesting conversation. So check it out. I've linked to it on our Facebook page. And For the People movie show coming up, we'll be talking Oscars, buzz, and how the streaming services are really giving the big theaters and distribution chains a run for their money. So that's coming up next.
I'm a wife and the mother of 2 kids, and I've got a good job.
Bye, Mom. See you, Mom.
A pretty important job. Because of my family and my job, I really care about this neighborhood. It's a good neighborhood. Yes, there's some crime. And when I drive to work, like now, I realize that some people here don't trust the police. So the police should be reaching out to this community, and this community should reach out to the police. That's the way to make this a safer place. And when I get to work in the precinct house and put on my uniform, I can tell you, as a police officer, that this department is reaching out to the community, and the community is doing its part. We're building partnerships. This should be happening everywhere. This is how we can all be safer. Get involved. Start the conversation.
Start the conversation and help stop crime. To learn the 5 things you can do, go to ncpc.org/prevent violent crime. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Following the big stories, News Talk KVNU, Logan, proud to be locally owned and operated by the